Playing 3-check on Chess.com is one of the most fun experiences you can have away from classical chess. It's one of the more fast-paced and more dangerous variants you could ever play. And in this video, we're going to go over a few tips to help you avoid losing quickly and maybe even win a few games in the variant of 3-check. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to accept this challenge here from my staff member friend helping me with the video. And one of the easiest things to remember about 3-check, and the first tip I'm going to give you is look to close the diagonals towards your king. So obviously you recognize where your king is, and the potential diagonals to start every chess game are this a2 to g8 diagonal and this h5 to e8 diagonal. I could play a move like queen h5, which has been played before, but probably sacrificing my queen on f7, even if I get a second check, is a little bit too risky. So instead I play this move bishop to c4, which immediately threatens the square f7. Now, what my opponent should play here is the move e6. e6 would be the move that, following this first tip I have for 3-check beginners, would close this critical diagonal to the king. If my opponent doesn't play that, I'm actually going to be winning on the spot immediately with a combination that guarantees 3 consecutive checks. We're going to start with the move bishop takes f7. Obviously, he has to take it. And after either queen to f3 check or queen h5, I'm actually guaranteed the third check no matter where he puts the king or how he blocks. I sacrifice and the game is over. So in quick review, as we back up here before we rematch and maybe show another tip, the point is that the fastest way to lose in a 3-check game is usually via these aggressive diagonals, not via a knight maneuvering up the board, although sometimes you might see games where the knight finds his way into the center and then gets a check. But usually it's much harder to follow up a knight check with consecutive checks, because once the knight is gone, you normally haven't opened up any new lines, ranks, files, or diagonals toward the enemy king. But the diagonals are an opportunity to lose the game just before you even blinked, as we saw happened here. As soon as a move like bishop takes f7 is played, you're going to lose the game very quickly. So the pro tip again, my opponent should have played the move e6. Here we would have seen a position that I played with Maxime Vacher-Lagrave on our Chess.com TV show called The Wild many times. And the game might continue. We have knight c3, knight c6. This is much more of a natural way to play these positions with neither side really allowing any sort of clear avenue to the enemy king. So let's go ahead and play another game. This time I'll take black and show you another way that things can go wrong. So I don't necessarily have a secret recipe. You saw I played e4 as white. Here my opponent's playing d4. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think e4 or d4 is necessarily that much better than the other. But one thing you really do want to avoid in the opening, we talked about keeping the critical diagonals closed. Here we're going to see my opponent make a big blunder, which is going to allow consecutive checks. My next tip is, if you're going to allow a check, try to keep it to just one. The moment you give your opponent the ability to check, and then no matter what you do, they're getting a second check, regardless of how my opponent blocks here, whether he had blocked with a piece on d2 or as he did here with a knight on c3, I'm just going to take it. Now, is the game over? Is my opponent resigning? No, but he's already under the gun, right? He's been put down 2 checks to nil, and it means that every move I play from here on out, like this move c5, trying to bring the queen out to a5 for another check, is putting my opponent in dire straits. So the second tip I'm going to say to go with this, keep the most accessible diagonals to the king closed, is going to be this tip: never allow consecutive checks. The moment we allow that, so now I don't have it, let's continue to play this game and see where I can win. But my opponent is going to have to play some super high quality chess from here on out to avoid forever the opportunity that black might get a third check, because now I'm like a wrecking ball, right? The moment I get that opportunity to open up a line like this move knight takes f2, a really dangerous move. Now I just gave my opponent 2 checks. Bishop takes h7 is actually okay, it's 1 check. I'm not going to take it. That's a very good move by him. If I take it here, really good pro tip, right? Things almost turn around for me. Fun fact here, if king takes h7, the move queen to c2 or b1 check would lose on the spot to me blocking his check with my own check, knight to d3, which would be a third check. So you see how fun 3-check can be, right? So if I take h7 and he tries to check me on this diagonal, he would still lose via this block his check with a check. But the move that would be very good for him would be the move knight to g5 check, recklessly opening up the queen, and then regardless of how I deal with that knight, I'm pretty sure he's going to get a third check. Actually, if king takes h7, knight to g5 check, that would be his second check. If I bring the king back to g8, it's not so simple, and then he's back to being in a tough spot where he actually has to deal with my knight on f2, even with the queen hanging. So really just to highlight that, I'm actually going to go for that to show you that despite my mistake here, the early and reckless play by my opponent, giving me those 2 consecutive checks with bishop b4 check and taking, still put him in a position that I don't really think he can recover from. So as you can see, the reason he played that is because if he moves the queen anywhere to h5 or to c2, anywhere that would continue the attack, my knight was just going to move to d3 with check. So now he moves the king to a safe square for now, right, avoiding the third check, but that allows me to sort of recover here, eliminating the knight and renewing the threat of getting my reckless third check, which how's he going to stop it now? I mean, maybe g3 delays it. I'm not even interested in the queen, right, because I'm interested in getting the checks as quickly as I can. And so this game really became a really fun, instructive one in highlighting all of our 3-check tips for beginners, which, of course, if you want to see the rest of the written tips, go ahead and head over to the article on Chess.com, where we provide a little bit of some diagrammed examples and complement this video well. Hopefully, as my opponent does his best to try to delay the inevitable one more move, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Go ahead and give us a like. Leave your comments about how you're enjoying or not the variants on Chess.com, and make sure you give us a subscribe as I put, unfortunately, my very willing Chess.com staff partner, Mr. Kirkwood, the legend himself on Reddit and social media. He's obliged well for us to really display these instructive tips. Thank you, everybody, and please check out our other instructive videos on how to play variants on Chess.com.